Welcome in, everyone. Get ready for a deep dive today into some, well, pretty unique sales wisdom.
Unique is an understatement, I'd say. We're talking ancient scrolls.
Scrolls, like Indiana Jones style.
Exactly. Think Indiana Jones, but instead of, a lost artifact, we're after the secrets of a legendary salesman named Hafez.
Okay, I'm intrigued already. So who is this half-fed guy?
Well, legend has it he started as a poor camel boy and rose to become one of the wealthiest men of his time.
And these scrolls were like his, what? His secret sales playbook.
More like his life philosophy woven into sales mastery.
Oh, that's interesting. So we're not just getting sales tips, we're getting like life lessons too.
Precisely. They're intertwined, really. In fact, scroll 3, the power of persistence, kind of sets the foundation for everything else.
Okay, persistence. I mean, that makes sense for sales. But what's so special about how Hafez approaches it?
He uses this vivid metaphor about young bulls being tested in an arena. They're judged by how many times they charge despite being pricked by a lance.
Okay, so like every no you get in sales is like that prick, but you got to keep charging forward.
Exactly. It's about that relentless drive. In sales, you can't let a few rejections derail you.
So resilience in the face of rejection. That's certainly relevant to anyone building a client base or, pitching ideas.
Yeah.
But isn't that bullfighting imagery a bit brutal? For today's world, I mean.
It might seem harsh, yeah. But the core message is about pushing past those obstacles. Hafez even compares it to chipping away at a giant oak tree.
Huh. One blow at a time.
Right. One blow might seem insignificant, but with enough of them, even the mightiest obstacle falls.
Okay, I see the connection. But how does a salesperson chip away at that tree, so to speak, in the real world?
It's all about consistent effort. Each sales call, each follow-up, every time you tweak your pitch, it's another chip.
So even when you don't see immediate results, it's the accumulation of those efforts that matters.
Exactly. Now, this leads perfectly into scroll 4, which is about embracing your uniqueness.
Okay, uniqueness. So wouldn't you want to have like a universal sales persona to appeal to everyone?
Hafez says the opposite. He calls each person nature's greatest miracle, and he really highlights how our unique traits make us stand out. He uses all sorts of examples in the scroll. Brushstrokes, chisel marks, even handwriting.
Each one different, just like how we each approach selling.
Exactly. Trying to copy someone else's style won't lead to a real connection. It's about self-awareness, figuring out your strengths and using those to your advantage.
So how do you actually translate that into a sales situation? I mean, how does knowing, say, I'm good at telling stories, actually help me close a deal?
Think of it as selling yourself, not in a fake way, but letting your genuine personality come through. That's what builds trust.
It's like personal branding, right? You're not a generic logo.
Precisely. Now, scroll 5 gets a bit more, well, existential. It's called living with urgency.
Okay, that sounds intense. Is Hafez telling us to make every sale like it's our last?
He has this thought-provoking idea, to live each day as if it were your last. It applies to sales because it emphasizes the value of time.
I can see that. We tend to put things off, overthink.
Right. And Hafez reminds us that time is constantly slipping away. He even asks, can tomorrow's sand flow through the glass before today's?
Okay, I get it. Make every moment count. Don't squander opportunities. But he's not saying to be, reckless, is he?
Not at all. He's just encouraging us to avoid dwelling on the past or, worrying too much about the future.
Be present. Maximize each interaction.
Precisely. Because you never know which one could be the key to your next big success.
This is making me rethink my whole schedule. All right, next up, scroll 6. Mastering your emotions. Does this mean becoming like a sales robot with no feelings?
Not at all. Hafez acknowledges that, we all have changing moods like the tides. They ebb and flow.
Right, but great salespeople are able to manage those emotions, not let them control them.
Exactly. It's not about suppressing feelings. It's about harnessing them. Hafez actually says, let me see if I can find the exact quote. Here it is.
Oh, this is good.
If I feel depressed, I will sing. If I feel sad, I will laugh. If I feel ill, I will double my labor. If I feel fear, I will plunge ahead.
So taking action, can actually shift your emotional state.
Exactly. Imagine walking into a sales pitch feeling totally defeated.
Oh yeah, that never goes well.
Right. But if you choose to do something positive, it can completely change your outlook and how others perceive you.
So instead of letting a bad meeting ruin my whole day, I should try to, listen to a song I like or something to shift gears.
Exactly. You have a choice in how you respond. And that choice affects not just you, but the energy you bring to your next interaction.
This is brilliant. I'm going to have to rethink my whole pre-meeting routine. Okay, on to scroll 7, where things seem to lighten up a bit. Finding joy in the journey.
Ah, yes. In this one, Hafez reminds us that sales, like life, shouldn't be all work and no play. He really emphasizes the importance of laughter.
Laughter. In sales.
He encourages us to laugh at the world and, most importantly, to laugh at ourselves.
Okay, I can see how humor can be a good tool. Disarm people, break the ice, make you more relatable. But wouldn't too much be distracting?
It's about balance. Hafez's not saying turn your pitch into a comedy routine. It's about bringing a joyful approach to your work. People are drawn to that kind of energy.
Makes sense. When you genuinely enjoy what you do, it shows, and that's persuasive.
And he introduces this great phrase, this too shall pass. It's meant to help you navigate both the highs and lows of sale.
I love that. Because it's true. No matter how tough things get or how amazing a win feels, it's all temporary.
Precisely. Now, this focus on finding joy sets the stage nicely for Scroll 8, which is all about, well, setting ambitious goals.
Okay, let's talk goals. In sales, we're always striving to hit that next target. But how ambitious is too ambitious?
Hafez starts with this analogy. Imagine a grain of wheat. You can eat it, grind it into flour, or plant it to multiply.
Okay, interesting. So we have similar choices. Stay stagnant, be consumed by others, or choose growth.
Exactly. He believes we find fulfillment when we choose to multiply, to set goals that really push us.
Okay, but how do you determine those goals? What if they're so big they become demotivating?
Well, Hafez's advice is pretty bold. He says, take your best past performance and multiply it 100-fold.
100 times. Is he serious?
He believes aiming that high forces you to think bigger, and it helps unlock potential you didn't even know you had.
It's like shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars.
Precisely. Now, all this wisdom is great, but Scroll 9 brings us back down to earth with a crucial reminder, the power of action.
All right, let's get practical. What's the takeaway here?
Hafez keeps it simple. I will act now. He recognizes that fear can paralyze us, especially in sales. We fear rejection, failure, the unknown.
That's so true. It's easy to get stuck overthinking things.
He argues that action is the antidote to that fear. Even a small step can start building momentum.
So instead of just absorbing all this information, we need to actually use it.
Exactly. He challenges us to pick one specific action we'll take after reading this scroll. Could be making that phone call we've been putting off, or sending that follow-up email.
It's about turning those insights into action.
Now, let's shift gears a bit to a more introspective theme with Scroll 10, seeking guidance.
Okay, this sounds different. Is he talking about, like, finding a mentor or something?
It's more about tapping into that universal human need to seek help when we feel lost or uncertain. He even presents a unique perspective on prayer, not as asking for material things, but as humbly seeking guidance.
Okay, interesting. He's acknowledging a need for, like, something bigger than ourselves to help us stay on track.
Exactly. He doesn't say where that guidance should come from. It could be a meditation, a trusted friend, or even that quiet voice inside.
So it's about finding that inner compass.
Precisely. Now, as fascinating as these scrolls are, the story takes an unexpected turn with the introduction of a character named Paul.
Oh. Who is Paul? And what does he have to do with all these ancient sales secrets?
Well, Paul is a fascinating figure. He's a former persecutor of Christians who goes through a pretty radical transformation. In fact, he's on his way to Damascus to arrest followers of Jesus when something extraordinary happens.
Wait, hold on. Is this going into, like, biblical territory? What does that have to do with sales?
Ah, but that's a story for part 2 of our deep dive.
You can't leave us hanging like that. I can't wait to hear what happens next. Okay, we're back, and I am so ready to hear about this Paul character. Remind me, what's his connection to Hafez in those scrolls?
Well, it's a story of, those unexpected connections, those aha moments.
Yeah, this is the best.
So as Paul is approaching Damascus, he's suddenly blinded by this light from the heavens, and he hears a voice.
Okay, this is definitely not your typical sales training. So what does this voice tell him?
It identifies itself as Jesus, and it tells Paul to go into the city.
He's blind, though, right?
Yeah, totally blind and confused. He fasts for days. Then a man named Ananias comes along and restores his sight.
So quite a turnaround, huh? He goes from persecuting Christians to, well, joining them. But where does Hafez fit into all of this?
Well, Paul starts preaching about Jesus, but faces a lot of resistance, even threats. He's actually in the temple when he hears that voice again, but this time with a specific message. It says, even the word of God must be sold to the people, else they will hear it not.
Wow, that's powerful. So even spiritual teachings need to be presented in a way that resonates, that makes people want to listen.
Exactly. And that's where Hafed comes in. The voice tells Paul to seek him out, to learn how to effectively share this message.
So a spiritual seeker being led to, of all people, a master salesman.
It's a pretty interesting pairing. So Paul sets off on this journey to find Hafed.
Right. So what happens when they finally meet? I mean, does Paul just walk up to Hafed and say, teach me your ways?
Well, he arrives at Hafed's palace, after a long journey, both physically and spiritually.
I bet.
He shares his story, and then he offers Hafed a remarkable gift, a tattered red robe that's believed to have belonged to Jesus.
Okay, now that's a conversation starter. How did he even get that robe?
He says he found it after much searching while he was in Jerusalem.
Huh. So what he's offering it is like a gesture of respect.
Right, showing that he's serious about learning from Hafed, but it's also a symbol, representing Paul's own transformation and the power of belief.
So this robe is more than just fabric. What's Hafed's reaction?
He's overcome with emotion. As he examines the robe, he recognizes the maker's mark. It turns out it's a robe that he himself sold years ago as a young camel boy.
No way. That's incredible. Full circle moment.
Exactly. It links his past to this unexpected encounter.
So does he just hand over the sales secrets? Here you go, kid. Go spread the good word.
Not quite. Remember, Hafed isn't just teaching techniques. He's imparting wisdom. He tells Paul that before he can learn from him, he has to prove himself worthy.
Ooh, a test. What does he have to do?
He challenges Paul to go out into the world and actually apply the principles from those scrolls.
Not just read them, but live them.
Exactly. Hafed emphasizes that true wisdom comes from experience. He tells Paul, let me find the quote. Here it is. Walk the path I have walked. Share the wisdom I have shared. And when you have truly mastered these scrolls, then you will be ready to receive the teachings of the master.
Okay, so that's a pretty tall order. How does Paul react?
He takes it on with humility and determination. He realizes it's not about shortcuts. It's a journey of growth.
So he sets off into the world, ready to put his newfound knowledge to the test.
Exactly. He goes from, passive student to active practitioner.
And I'm guessing it wasn't all smooth sailing, right?
Of course not. The path to mastery is never easy. He faces rejection, hardship, doubt.
And I bet there were times he wanted to give up, questioned if this whole journey was worth it.
Absolutely. But whenever he faltered, he turned to the scroll with the salesman's prayer.
It's like that scroll grounded him, reminded him of something bigger than himself.
It's that principle of seeking guidance. Hafed might not have emphasized prayer specifically, but he stressed the importance of finding that support, whether through meditation, a mentor, or whatever works for you.
Yeah, it's easy to lose sight of that in the hustle and bustle of everyday life.
Especially in sales, where there's so much pressure to perform.
So Paul's out there, facing challenges, seeking guidance. But what about the actual, selling part? Does he manage to use any of Hafed's techniques?
He does, but the real change is in his approach. He realizes it's not just about closing deals, it's about connecting with people.
It's about embodying that selling yourself idea that Hafed talked about, right?
Exactly. And it ties back to that idea of embracing your uniqueness. Paul, by being true to his own journey, is able to resonate with others in a way that no sales script ever could.
That's amazing. So years pass, and eventually Paul decides to return to Damascus.
The prodigal salesman returns.
Exactly. So what's waiting for him back at Hafed's palace? Does he finally get those secret teachings?
But you'll have to wait for part 3 of our deep dive to find out.
Okay, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Hafed's scrolls. Last we heard, Paul was returning to Damascus after years of testing out those principles. So what's the scene like when he gets back to Hafed's palace?
Well, time has definitely passed. The palace isn't quite as grand as it once was, a little weathered, And Hafed himself, he's older, his health isn't what it used to be. But you can tell when he sees Paul, his eyes just light up.
So that connection between them, it's still there.
Oh, absolutely. Hafed welcomes him like a son, full of pride and warmth. He can see how much Paul has grown from his journey.
Yeah, but this is more than just a reunion, right? Paul had to prove he understood those scrolls. Did he pass the test?
He did. In fact, he exceeded Hafed's expectations. He tells stories of his travels, the people he met, the challenges he faced.
So he's showing Hafed that he gets it, not just in theory, but through lived experience.
Exactly. He explains how he learned to embrace his own strengths, just like Hafed taught, and use those to connect with people authentically. He even talks about finding joy, even in the tough times, remembering that This too shall pass.
He's not just reciting the scrolls, he's become a living example of them. What's Hafez's reaction to all this?
He sees that Paul has become a true master salesman, but not in the traditional sense. He sees someone who can inspire others, lead them to a deeper understanding.
It's like those scrolls were a guide, but the real learning came from the journey itself.
Exactly. And Hafez emphasizes that it's a lifelong process. Let me see if I can find the exact quote. Here it is. He says, never stop seeking, never stop questioning, and never stop sharing the light that burns within you.
Wow, that's beautiful. So what happens to Paul after this? Does he continue to spread those teachings?
He does, but not in the way he initially thought he would. He doesn't build churches or become a, traditional preacher. He keeps traveling, meeting people where they are, sharing his story.
It's like he becomes a salesman of the Spirit.
That's a great way to put it. And his legacy lives on, not in scrolls or buildings, but in the countless lives he touched.
This has been such an incredible journey. We've gone from ancient sales secrets to profound life lessons and witnessed this amazing connection that transcends time. Any final thoughts for our listeners out there?
Well, I think it's important to remember that those principles in the scrolls, they apply to everyone, not just salespeople. Persistence, self-belief, embracing your uniqueness, finding joy. These are universal truths.
It's a reminder that success isn't just about money or achievements, but about living a life that's true to yourself and connects you to something bigger.
Exactly. And it's about using your own unique talents to make a positive impact, just like Paul did.
This has been a fascinating exploration of sales, spirituality, and human connection. We hope you've been inspired to find your own path and live a life filled with purpose and joy. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.